Space RTS games are a funny old thing because some of them feel absolutely brilliant decades after they've launched, and others have aged like milk next to a slightly leaky fusion core. That's the most sci-fi joke I could think of. But today we are looking at 20 Space RTS games that you need to check out in 2026. So it's going to be a blend of older classics that still hold up, newer releases, and some overlooked gems that still have something special about them. To make it very relevant to 2026, I'm going to see, does the core gameplay hold up now, what the current state of the game is, and is the mod scene still alive and well. For anyone new here, we are LT Gaming. This is a gaming channel run by two brothers, myself and Luke, and we cover everything from RTS, grand strategy, city builders, space sims, you name it, we'll probably cover it. If you enjoy this sort of thing, give the video a like, help us get out there. Let me know in the comments which of these games you think deserves more love in 2026. And if you like what I do today, feel free to subscribe as well. Alright, let's get into it. Okay, coming out swinging with Star Wars Empire at War, which at this point feels less like an old RTS and more like an immortal space strategy that refuses to die. And honestly, this one is great. Even in 2026, Empire at War is one of the best Star Wars games ever made, and I'd go one further than that. With the right mods installed, I'd say it's one of the best RTS games ever made, full stop. The base game already had a brilliant structure, galactic conquest on this strategic layer, fleet movement across the galaxy, planets changing hands, space battles above them, what's not to like? But where Empire at War sits in its own class today though is through the mod scene. This thing has an absolutely beastly community behind it, huge projects expanding the factions, timelines, units, campaigns, visuals, balance, even the strategic depth. Mods like Thrawn's Revenge, Fall of the Empire, and Awakening of the Rebellion don't just add a few new ships and call it a day, they make Empire at War feel like a bigger, richer, and more modern Star Wars strategy sandbox. Check this game out, please. Next up is Sins of a Solar Empire Rebellion, and I gotta be upfront, we've had our issues with Stardock in the past. Back when we were a smaller channel, they were pretty nasty with us when we tried to cover one of their games. We never knew why, but this doesn't change the fact that Sins of a Solar Empire is an absolute monster of a space strategy game. It's one of those rare titles that does genuinely sit between RTS and 4X, without awkwardly feeling like it's wearing two hats. And that is the magic of Sins. It does have this broad Empire level strategy, but the battles unfold in real time with delightfully proper scale. Fleets move across the map, phase lanes become crucial strategic points. It's just an excellent game. Even in 2026 it holds up because there's not many games that are able to capture that same feeling of slow burn galactic escalation. The mod scene helps as well. There's things like Sins Remastered and full conversion projects like Star Trek Armada 3. If you want to play one of the all-time great RTS 4X hybrids, you gotta check this one. A foray into the indie side with Annihilate the Spance, and yeah, it's a weird name, but honestly I respect it. It's a much smaller, lesser known space RTS from Skyglow Softworks and was released into early access back in Jan 25. And this one has base building, economy management, constant production, and huge battles between autonomous ships. You don't have to micro every little fighter in this game. You set up the machine, build your bases, shape the production side of things, and then you watch your fleets crash into the enemy in this glorious mess of lasers, explosions, and a few questionable naval architecture decisions. The game has a decent amount going on with it. The early access version has 22 missions across 2 campaigns, 2 main playable factions, a few minor ones, loads of ships and structures and turrets to dig into. Now, it's not the obvious giant of this list, it's rougher, smaller, and clearly still developing, but for me that's part of the appeal. It has the indie RTS energy, and you can see the mechanical ideas being chased hard, and for me that makes it worth paying attention to. So if you like base building, big autonomous space battles, and interesting unit interactions, this should be one on your radar. Check it out. Next up is a favourite of mine, A.I War 2, and it's one of the most distinct games on this entire list. It is not your standard space RTS where you build a base and rush the enemy. No hotkeys here. This one is like an asymmetric guerrilla war against a vastly stronger intelligent machine where it already controls most of the galaxy. You start out small, you pick your targets carefully, and the whole game is like this weird balancing act between expansion, survival, and try not to annoy the AI too much. Quite relevant in this day and age, to be honest. It's not about having actions per minute, the game is pausable and has a much stronger focus on your strategy and how you position things. And a lot of the challenge comes from having the fleets in the right places at the right time, and doing the right thing before everything goes spectacularly sideways. The result is a Space RTS that is almost impossible to directly compare to anything else. It has RTS battles, 4x like scale, tower defense elements, grand strategy, pressure, just everything you could want really. And if you do get into it, the DLCs are genuinely worth looking at as well. They add lots of different threats, factions, and systems to an already very deep game. Era 1 now, and this one we've featured fairly recently on the channel because it is rapidly shaping up to be one of the more interesting modern Space RTS games around. Part of the reason is the background of the team. Team Complex includes former Homeworld Cataclysm modders, and you can feel the lineage here. Not in the sense that it's just a copy of Homeworld, but it understands why Space RTS games are special, and it's evolving on that. It is a game about building in space, not just fighting in it. You construct bases from modular parts, design stations and warships, manage your resources, build up your fleets, and then watch the whole thing erupt into tactical space battles. It really stands out because it's pushing at the edges of what a modern Space RTS can be. The base building side gives real creative freedom. Structures and ships are built from assembly modules rather than just drop down from a fixed template, so it gives a very different flavour to traditional games. It is in early access, but the current version includes multiple modes, enemy waves, scenario missions, and they're aiming to build things towards multiplayer, more advanced AI, and a dynamic episodic campaign. There is a lot of development ahead of this one, but if you love the old Homeworld era space strategy and want something newer, stranger, and more construction focused, this is one for 2026. Imperium Galactica 2, and this one is a slightly different flavour of space strategy. It's probably for more those chasing the 4x itch than the pure RTS one, and that's why it feels so special, I think. You don't just command fleets in isolated battles, this is an empire building space game, and we always get comments on newer features asking if it matches up back to Imperium Galactica 2, and honestly, I never feel comfortable saying yes to that comment. For me, there is just a combination here that works. The empire layer gives you the grand strategy pull, the real-time battles stop it when it feels too detached or spreadsheety, and you never feel like you're just making abstract decisions and watching your numbers go up. You're building actual forces and sending them across the galaxy. Yes, it's an older game, you get that feel in places, but in 2026 it almost becomes part of the charm. It's from an era when space strategy games were more wildly ambitious, and sometimes slightly unhinged in the best possible way. Sins of a Solar Empire 2, and I'm not going to harp on about Stardock again here, we've covered our diplomatic incident earlier in the video. Judging it purely as a game, Sins 2 is good, in some areas it's very good. The graphics are sharper, interface is cleaner, performance is stronger, and a lot of the old friction from the first game has been smoothed down. When the fleet battles get going, Sins 2 does look superb, I think. Missiles flying, point defense lighting up, capital ships turning for broadsides, it's just fantastic. The caveat here is I don't think it matches up with the first game overall. A lot of the game systems have been streamlined and it removes some of the tedium, but it does make the experience feel flatter over time. But the biggest issue for me with this game is the AI. It just seems confused half of the time. And that matters because Sins lives or dies on escalation. You want the feeling that rival empires are breathing down your neck and things are becoming dangerous, but it all loses some of the bite because the AI doesn't push back properly. So Sins 2 belongs on this list. It is modern, polished and better presented than the first game, but it has a much smaller modding scene and it has some caveats that you should be aware of before you jump in. Nexus, the Jupiter incident, for me is one of the forgotten greats in my humble little space nerd opinion. The caveat is this isn't traditional base building RTS, it's more on the real-time tactical space command side of things, mission design, fleet control, ship systems, all of that jazz. And honestly, this game is a gem. It does require patience. If you mess up on a mission, you don't realise it until slightly too late that your clever plan was actually ridiculous. Some of the controls are not that well explained, to be honest, but once Nexus clicks for you, there is nothing quite like it. The pacing of the story is excellent, mission layouts constantly give you new scenarios and problems to solve, and the battles have this wonderfully cinematic quality to them. And to me it still stands out in 2026, as plenty of games do large scale, plenty do empire management, but very few capture this kind of focused, handcrafted tactical space combat where your missions feel like set pieces and every ship has to be preserved. So yeah, it's an older pick, it's a bit awkward in places, but it's genuinely one of a kind, and can we just get Nexus 2 at some point? I know there's some drama around this, but come on, let's get it done. Star Ruler 2, it is an older game now, yes, and there are definitely moments where you feel that. The presentation doesn't exactly glide into 2026 with a fresh feel. But that being said, there is some really clever stuff here. At its core, it is a massive scale 4X RTS hybrid, exploring, colonizing, managing resources, all of the stuff you would expect. The economy is probably the thing that stands out most to me. Rather than every planet just becoming another generic production node, resources here matter, colonies interact with each other, and the shape of your empire starts to feel like a big logistics hub. And then you have the ship designer, which is huge. It uses a blueprint style system where you can lay out armors, weapons, engines, all of the internal components. You can build ridiculously custom designs or import other people's creations, which I love because I'm terrible at designing. There's also a pretty good DLC worth digging into called Wake of the Heralds, adding new factions. So yeah, Star Ruler 2 can show its age. It's a bit awkward, a bit niche, but it is one of the most interesting games on this list, and I do wish fervently that we had a Star Ruler 3. Now we're going to go a little bit more indie with Particle Fleet Emergence, and this is exactly the sort of game I love putting in lists like this because it's not necessarily the massive obvious pick, but it's a very interesting game. It comes from Knucklecracker, the dev behind Creeper World, so you can feel the same design brain at work here. It's not just about building a big fleet and throwing at another one. It's about this strange little blend of RTS, fleet design, physics simulation, and tactical puzzle solving. And the key thing with this one is the enemy doesn't behave like a normal RTS opponent. You fight this flowing, swarming mass of particles that can surround you, engulf you, push through gaps, and really just force you to think quite differently. It's very worth checking out because it's not chasing the usual vibe, it has its weird little own identity. And I mean that as a compliment. There's a lot to do in it. It's very positively received as well, so go check it out. Conquest Frontier Wars, and I love to put this on the list. It's not just an old RTS for me, it's a childhood space RTS, and it has some really smart ideas. Released back in 2001, Conquest is a proper deep space RTS built around large-scale fleet battles, multiple races, hero-like fleet admirals, which I love, and I just find the ambition in this game is very relatable to me. The admirals, as I mentioned, are a great touch. They act like hero units, helping with your fleet management, threat assessment, and tactical organisation, so I feel it gives the game a bit more personality. Yes, it is over 25 years old now. Visually, it's not going to compete with some of the modern titles, but for a 2001 RTS, it has aged surprisingly well, and the underlying design is extremely interesting. If you like older RTS games, you want something a bit different, you want to revisit the past, Conquest Frontier Wars is absolutely worth checking out, and it's pretty reasonably priced as well. 5 Nations now, and this one is basically a love letter to classic 90s RTS design, but in space. I feel 5 Nations taps into this Warcraft in space kind of energy. Chunky, clean, old school RTS structure, build your base, manage your economy, produce units, and then expand. It has a really chunky, substantial campaign which I like, 56 story missions with voice acting, and skirmishes against the AI across more than 20 maps. And for me that's the appeal, it's easy enough to understand if you played the classic RTSs. A lot to master in how you build, expand and control your ships, and then use your structures properly. The presentation is very good, very easy to understand, and a pleasing old school clarity where you can tell what is actually happening. Now one big downside, when I last played it was single player only, but hopefully this is something that might get added in the future. Now it's certainly not the loudest game on this list, but I think a lot of LT gamers will connect with it, so have a look. NEBULOUS Fleet Command is another one we've covered fairly recently on the channel because it continues to be one of the more fascinating, complex space strategy games still evolving in 2026. Now this isn't traditional space building RTS, you're not mining asteroids or spamming frigates, this is a tactical fleet commander game. You design your fleet before the battle, configure ships down to the hardpoints, systems and internal compartments, and then try to survive in a 3D battle space. It stands out because it has a wonderful feeling of being less about who can click the fastest and more about who actually understands what is happening, which is definitely not me. I try, but I usually die. The game is brutally punishing because your ships matter, every one of them. You can't just throw away units and rebuild them 20 seconds later. You have to commit your fleet, make your approach, and then try to tie it all together with a strategic thread. If you want space strategy where it feels like commanding a sci-fi naval engagement, and I see this very much as a successor to Nexus, for example. This is absolutely one you should check out in 2026. Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2 is where, if you want space battles done with proper weight drama, all in the 40k skin, it's a brilliant pick. You've got your 12 tabletop factions represented here, and the real joy is the space combat. You're not zippy little fighters dancing around in neat circles. It's about enormous slabs of Gothic metal trying to outmaneuver each other, bringing your broadsides to bear, launching torpedoes, boarding actions, a lot of tactical nuance here. It's lovely stuff. Fleet maneuverability for me is what makes it click. You have a lot of positioning considerations, how you're facing, your timing, and getting the battleship into the right arc at the right moment feels fantastic. A few downsides: I do feel like the campaign is grindy as hell, and a lot of the times it feels like your true enemy is the admin side of things. But even with that caveat, I do think this game is absolutely worth checking out in 2026, and it's a big step up from the original one in my opinion. Star Trek Armada, and I'm going to go with the original here because I haven't really done enough time on Armada 2 to put it in this list, but I 100% think it deserves its place here. It's a proper RTS from 2000, built around the major powers of the Alpha Quadrant, so Federation, Klingons, Romulans and Borg, all fighting for control. You have base building, star bases, resource gathering, all the things you would expect in an RTS. What makes it fun is it actually feels like Star Trek, rather than just a generic RTS with that skin on. You don't just pump out units either, the factions have real personality. The Borg can assimilate ships, nebulas matter, wormholes shift the shape of a map. Special abilities give battles that slightly chaotic Star Trek episode energy. Now, it is obviously an older pick here. You feel that in the interface and the pacing and this general turn of the millennium RTS clunk, but there's a lot of charm to it when it lands. The GOG version keeps it accessible on modern systems, so go have a look if Star Trek and RTS is your thing. Looking at O.R.B now, off-world resource base, and this is a proper classic deep cut. This is released back in 2002, and it's one of those older RTS games that looks a bit intimidating at first glance. The interface, the camera, the scale, this dusty early 2000s PC energy, but once it all clicks and you know how it wants to be played, this thing can eat up hours of your life like a little black hole. What makes it interesting is the sheer sense of space. It has a dynamic universe with planets, moons, orbits, asteroid belts, all the things you'd expect, alongside two playable races with their own campaigns, strategies and tech. And the scale is the appeal for me. You're not just fighting on a flat little arena with some stars in the background, there is a real vastness to the play area. That makes your exploration, positioning and fleet movement feel much more involved than you would expect of a game this age. Lot of unit variety too. So yeah, O.R.B is old, a bit complicated up front, and it's not going to win over someone who needs all the modern RTS polish, but if you do like classic space RTS games with scale, atmosphere and big fleets, you should have a look at this one. Executive Assault 2 now, and I'm going a bit mental here because this is a space RTS FPS hybrid where you can run the whole war from above or jump personally into the middle. And that's the magic with this one. On the RTS side you get what you expect. You do all the things like building your bases, expanding, mining resources, etc. But then the game lets you go inside almost everything, ships, stations, base interiors, and you actually step into the war that you're managing from above. It gives the whole thing a different sense of scale. Your base isn't just a collection of icons and build queues, it's a place you can run around inside, defend, sabotage, or watch fall apart because apparently you're a terrible CEO. Now, is this game perfect? No, it's absolutely messy in places. It's the kind of hybrid design that is very hard to pull off cleanly. But I respect it because it has ambition, it's strange, and it's made by devs who care about the concept because they continuously update it. If you want a polished, traditional RTS, this probably isn't the safest pick for you, but if you want something bold, immersive, and a bit unhinged, check this one out in 2026. Homeworld Emergence, better known as Homeworld Cataclysm to many of us before Blizzard waded in with a trademark baseball bat. This one is fascinating to me because it's a Homeworld game that gets treated like kind of an awkward middle child, but I think it does a lot of interesting things for the series. Instead of commanding a grand mothership like from the first game, you're following this small mining vessel, a smaller clan trying to rebuild after the events of Homeworld. And the change of perspective really matters. You're not the chosen flagship of a civilization here, you're a working ship from smaller people dragged into a much bigger conflict which was nastier than you expected. It adds some smart changes to the old Homeworld formula, ship upgrades, command ship modules, time compression, and a much more capable command ship that develops over the campaign with you. And this is why I think it belongs in the 2026 list. It's old, yeah, it doesn't have the shiny remastered treatment yet, but it has atmosphere, tension, great mission design, and one of the more memorable threats in the Beast in Space RTS history. Dustfleet now, and this game I put in the good but has some caveats camp, is clearly Homeworld inspired, especially in how it handles tactical fleet combat in a 3D space, commanding ships, maneuvering them, positioning them properly, and trying to win through smarter fleet engagement rather than just throwing numbers at the problem. Dustfleet is focused on those battles, and it is a fun time. The tactical side has a good amount going on, customization, research, different hulls, modules and the like. Where I'm a bit more cautious with this one is the campaign and strategic layer. Missions themselves are interesting, but the campaign is on the short side and not really that challenging. The star map side of things is serviceable, I'd say, but not the reason I'd recommend the game. It's there, it does the job, it doesn't quite elevate Dustfleet into the same conversation as some of the absolute greats. So in 2026, I think Dustfleet is worth checking out if you want more tactical, Homeworld flavoured space combat with a bit of a shinier look and a new skin. Alright, no surprises here, Homeworld Remastered Collection, and I'm bundling Homeworld 1 and 2 together here because today this is how most people are going to experience them as they come like that on Steam. But for me, Homeworld is still the best space RTS ever made. Not just because it was cinematic, though it was. It's the music, the atmosphere, the story. They hit harder than most games with 10 times the budget. And Homeworld was one of the first games that broke the mold and showed what a modern space RTS could be. And I think games are still chasing that vibe today. True 3D movement, fleet formations, vertical positioning, capital ships, it had everything you could want. And even in 2026, the core feelings still work with this one. I just completed another run through the campaign, and it still feels like an amazing game. The mod scene is another big reason it deserves attention. There's a lot on the Steam Workshop. You've got Star Wars, Star Trek total conversion mods out there, like Star Wars Warlords and Star Trek Continuum. And I'm even thinking about making a spotlight video on these mods. If you somehow missed this game, you should definitely check it out. Even in 2026, it's still the benchmark for me. So to wrap this video up, what I do find exciting in space strategy is it does feel like it's building towards something new again, with games like Fragile Existence, Falling Frontier and Null Space on the horizon. I do think this space, and pun intended there, could elevate properly in the next few years. If you don't want to sit around waiting for the next big thing to leave the shipyard, there's already quite a bit to dig into. Classics that hold up, indie oddities that doing clever things, and huge mod scenes keeping older games alive, and a few modern titles pushing the genre in different directions. Let me know in the comments which of these jump out to you, what are you playing that maybe I missed, and if you enjoyed the video, feel free to give it a like, and thank you to the members on screen right now as well. Alright, that will do it for today, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye bye now.